Hello and welcome to the latest edition of Rugby League Backchat from the LD Nutrition Stadium in Featherstone. We've had everything this week from sackings to Golden Point drama, and to talk us through it we have three very special guests. Former Great Britain legend Francis Cummins, Huddersfield star and soon to be Leeds Rhinos player Alex Mellor, and one of the leading journalists in Rugby League from the Yorkshire Evening Post, Pete Smith. Gents, welcome. We think we could start in several places this week, but we're going to start on Golden Point because we've got a player who was involved in one this week for the wrong reasons, unfortunately. But the big one was in London. London beating St.Helens. I don't think anyone saw that coming. Pete, what a result that was for the Broncos.
Oh, fantastic for London. Not so good for certain teams near them at the bottom of the table, but I think is that London's second win in 3 games. They're showing some decent form. They've already got a lot more points than anybody expected them to do this season, and they're still hanging right in there in the battle against relegation. Golden Point, terrific for them. The fans will remember that for a long time. Whether that's the right way to end a game or not, I'm not so sure. I'm not a fan of Golden Point. We've given it a chance. We're halfway through the season now. I think there's been 4 or 5 Golden Point games. I'm still not a fan of it. I think a draw would have been a fair result in that game and in Huddersfield against Cass. I don't see how the Golden Point was any more exciting than the end of either of those games in normal time. Saints scored right at the end, kicked a touchline conversion to level the scores. That should have been it, in my opinion.
What do you think, Alex? You've just been on the wrong end of it, so it's maybe the wrong time to ask you.
Yeah, definitely the wrong time. I think as a player, it's not ideal in terms of you're that tired and you see the final hooter go and you think your job's done and you've got another 10 minutes to go and a lot more pressure. But I think from a fan's point of view, it's probably exciting to watch and it probably brings a little bit more buzz to the end of a game rather than it just being a bit of a dull draw. It forces a result. So I can see why it's been brought in and I can see why from a marketing point it's been brought in. From a losing player's point of view, it definitely needs scrapping. If we'd have won it, it'd have been a completely different story. But no, it's going to have mixed views, but I think it's quite a good thing.
I mean, to play devil's advocate to what Pete's saying, for me, it does manufacture memorable moments. One of the most memorable moments of the season being that Brad Dwyer drop goal from 42 yards and David Furner's reaction to it.
Yeah, you've got the moment. I think we probably are overlooking the tension leading up to the end of the game. So whether it's Saints scoring in the last minute or whatever happened there's a tension within that. I'm not sure you need an outcome in that. Myself, I don't think the quality as a coach now. I'm thinking more of the quality of the end. Obviously, you've got to get your draw. You've got to get to the end or whatever it is. You've got to win. But the quality of it is not very good. We've got anyone having a go at a drop goal. We know what's going on. It's not as if we're trying to score a try. It's a kick. That's it. And I think there were a fair few in the Castleford game, P-rollers, and I think Darryl described them as all kinds of carrier bag kicks and everything. And I don't think the quality's there, although you've got the moment. I quite, as a rugby league fan, I enjoy the tension of the last bit. And if it's a draw, it's a draw.
Is there a way around it? Is there a way where you could maybe give both teams a point anyway, and then the winner gets the added point?
That if you got to have extra time, then I think that's a solution. Because Saints and Huddersfield both deserved something from the game after 80. It's an 80-minute game, isn't it? If you look at the rules, it's an 80-minute game, and they were level after 80 minutes. I think that is a possibility. I mean, there's been some talk of golden try. I'm not sure about that. If we'd gone to golden try at Leeds Wakefield the other night, we'd still be here, there now, and nobody would have scored. But yeah, I think possibly giving a point to both teams and then a bonus point, if you like, for the extra time would be has some merit to it. I just think it's asking a lot of the players. Was it 88 minutes you played the other night?
Longest game in Super League ever.
That's a lot, and I'm saying that must be the longest Super League game ever played. And Cass are backing up Thursday night. It's a big ask. And I don't think the system's fair either. A lot depends on who kicks off, who gets the ball first in extra time, things like that. I just don't like the system.
What's it like to play as then? You touched on it before. Is it draining? Is it quite anxiousness and whatnot?
I think, like Franny said, it's a different type of rugby. You start panicking. and everything sort of goes out the window. You know what I mean? Like, you get to your 5th tackle and you're 60 metres out, and you think you can kick a drop goal to win it. You know, and
You went for one for them halfway, didn't you? Huddersfield?
Yeah.
Not you particularly.
Jesus, not me, definitely not me. But like I said, if you put the ball in the corner and you play rugby normally, you should create a chance to score or to be in a better position of a drop goal. So I think if you take the panic element out of it, I think teams will probably play better. But anyone under that amount of pressure, when there's 2 points or no points on the line, is going to be forced to panic, and it breeds that sort of rugby.
Anyway, enough about that. London, Franny. I mean, Leeds win. Everyone thinks, oh, Leeds are looking good now. That Hull KR had got the win at Magic Weekend, and all of a sudden, here are London again, showing that they're here and right in the mix. They just never cease to amaze, do they?
No, I like what London have done. They didn't get rid of all the players that got them there. If we're honest, London, they've not got too much strike, but they don't go away. I really like what Wardy's done with them. They work hard for each other. They probably need a Saints to be off the game to beat them, and obviously they were, but they've come up with it. And to get those number of wins, I don't think anyone would have said or expected them to do it. So I like the story about what they're doing. Like I say, I think they work really hard for each other. They're a little bit blunt at times on attack, but that's what happens. That's the way the competition is. But they're finding a way out there, and hats off to them all, because it's tough when you're losing most weeks, as I've known as a coach. But to dust yourself down again and go again, especially against the standout team in the competition, I think it's a great achievement for London.
It's certainly exciting, isn't it? At the bottom of the table, Saints could afford to lose that one. Let's face it, they're still going to finish top, and I think they rested a few players. That's one of the problems you got with the relegation system, though, isn't it? It's a lot more. We should be focusing on the best teams, the teams at the top of the table, but it's a lot more exciting what's happening at the bottom of the table, because you'd say it's probably between 3 teams, but there's actually probably 6 that if they're not in danger now, could be dragged into that situation with a few injuries or a run of bad results. So I think that is a problem for Super League. Having said that, they always say the strength of competitions in the bottom teams, and at the moment we've got Leeds and Wigan down there, so that says something about the strength of the competition.
Alex, honestly, within playing circles, did anyone think that London would be able to compete in the manner they have done?
I don't think they did, mate. No, I think if you look at the squad on paper and you compare it to like the top squads, I think they were underestimated a lot. But I think London looked like a side who just enjoy the rugby, they enjoy the life. I don't think there's much pressure on them, and that shows in some of the performances they've had this year. They've come out and made a real statement, and hats off to them. It's a tough place to go down there. I think when we played them, they were very, very unlucky not to beat us. Yeah. And they're just a side that don't go away. Whether you're 30-0 up at half time or you're 10-0 down, they've always got a chance of coming back and winning.
I know that Leeds have been linked with a lot of players. What about coaches, Franny? Danny Ward, I mean, he always has a smile on his face. He's a guy you know well. Is he ready for that?
Well, I would probably say no, but I would say one is probably the most charismatic coaches in the league. That is Wardy that you see. So, and I'd class myself in that not in that category, but most coaches are guarded. They try to portray. You have to, show you this is what I'm like, or I'll keep you at arm's length, or whatever it is. And Wardy doesn't. I think he's nice and relaxed within his. He is. I think Leeds, as it's proved with Dave Ferner, Leeds' job is not someone who's worked behind the ears, and I say that for majority of coaches here. I don't mean just Danny. I just think it's a huge job. Is the Leeds job. I think one is the focus of the size of the club, but also the task in hand. I think this is not just a few tweaks. This is a long job for whoever gets that.
On the coaching front, Pete, if anyone knows what's going on, it'll be you. Other than
I have no idea what's going on.
Other than maybe Kevin Sinfield and Gary Everingham. Well,
I'm going to ask Alex. I mean, you must know who's going to be coaching you next year. So who is it going to be?
I'm not sure.
Leeds are playing the cards close to the chest.
Yep.
There's no confirmation or word coming out of the club at all. No hints, nothing.
The way it needs to be, Pete. You've got to be professional, and more so if me and you and Alex know, generally it's going to be out again. I think They've got to do it that way.
Well, if I knew it, it'd be the back page in the paper straight away. You've got to wonder why they've not appointed yet. Kevin Sinfield's talked about stability till the end of the season. I think Richard Argyle's been asked to do the job until then. He says he doesn't want the job on a permanent basis. I suspect that they're looking at someone to take over from the off-season. So you wonder why that is the case, and maybe it's somebody that's already in a job. They've been linked with Darryl Powell. That would make sense in a lot of ways. He's been at Castleford a long time.
Would it make sense for Darryl Powell, though?
That's an interesting one. In a way, it would. Yeah, I mean, Darryl's always said he's not interested. He wants to see the job through at Castleford. I think he wants to win something at Cass. It's his hometown club and everything. But he's been there since 2013. And as Franny will tell you, coaches reach a point where they've been at a club long enough, and maybe Darryl's getting close to that point. He needs a new challenge. Certainly, I think he'd be appealing to Leeds because he plays attractive rugby, or his teams play attractive rugby. He knows the Leeds club, and he improves players, and that's what they need.
If you were advising Darryl, what would you say, stick or twist, Franny?
I think you can't really speak on behalf of Darryl, can you? But I think we go back to when he actually was the head coach, and the probably deal was then for him to come back at some stage. I'm not sure they had a plan of doing it 15 years later or whatever that was. But Darryl was a good coach then anyway. I think I was part of that playing group, and I thought the playing group let him down. A few of the senior professionals weren't honest. It wasn't until Tony Smith, Brian Mack came in that eventually some of these professionals toed the line, and it showed what happened. And I think we were nearly there. Challenge cups and things like that. But yeah, it's a difficult one because it's Darryl's a friend as well, so I won't be advising Darryl, and he won't ask me for my advice. But it'd be hard to turn down an opportunity at Leeds because you've got the stadium, you've got the the backing. You've got to weigh whether he's taken Castleford as far as they can go, or they've got one go at it. It probably from an outsider looks a little bit like Cass missed their opportunity when Leeds beat them. Yeah. But I think probably where the game is at the moment. I thought Cass for a good few years really pushed the brand of rugby league. I thought it was great. Don't see him as expansive as they were and as effective, but I mean that can happen. They've got some players missing. They've had some injuries. They've still lost the talisman in Luke Gale, who's a big influence as well. So he'll have to weigh that up. And again, hometown clubs and all that. But I'm sure there's an itch there. There'll be an itch somewhere because it didn't end well, and there were promises and all that kind of thing. Or maybe not. Maybe he's moved on and thought, right, I'll never go back. You never know. I've not spoken to him on it. And it's a nice talking point. It's good for the game. Mm-hmm. I think he'd be if I was picking a Great Britain coach, I'd go straight for Darryl Powell.
Right. Just to wrap up this golden point, let's just touch on Huddersfield, Alex, because I think you've lost 3 games by 1 point now. If you'd have won them, you'd have been 3rd in the league. Instead, you're nearer the bottom of the top. You must be kicking yourselves at the minute, you boys.
Yeah, it's been frustrating, mate. I think the most frustrating thing is we've been leading with 5-10 minutes to go in every single one of them games, and it's just closing the game out. I think the first one against Wakey, we were 6 points up. They scored, kicked a drop goal, won. Next one, we conceded a penalty, 4 minutes to go, lost. Next one, we were winning with 4 minutes to go and ended up losing. So I think that hurts more than losing by a point, the fact that we were in the game to win it and we've ended up losing all 3. Like you say, if you look at the league table, it'd look completely different, and our mood would probably be completely different as well. But it is what it is. This stuff's happened, and we've just got to try and move on from it.
You've still got a healthy gap between the bottom sides and yourselves, but just to wrap this up on London, despite the fact they got 5 wins, does anyone still think they could stay up now? Does anyone think they will stay up? I'll come to you first, Alex.
Yeah, I think they could. I mean, there's always a chance, especially because there's no pressure on them.
Yep.
And other teams are going to be thinking, "Oh my God, we've got to do something here. We've got to win. We've got to win." And there's a lot of pressure building up on those teams. Whereas London are just playing like a free spirit, and hopefully for them they'll stay up.
We're going to speak about Hull KR after the break. The level on points with Hull KR, Pete. Will the Robins be extremely nervous now? Likewise, the Rhinos.
I think they will. I think Leeds will be as well. Yeah, there's 13 games to go. Not much in it. London's points difference isn't great, but down there it's a tough place to go. As Alex has said, plastic pitch and everything, and I can see them jagging a couple more wins. They're probably going to need to win 1 or 2 away from home. Not sure that's going to happen, but yeah, they're right in there. It will be a shock if they do stay up, but I think it's possible.
Will they stay up, Franny? I'll make that the tough question for you. You've got about 30 seconds.
There's part of me says for Wardy especially, and what they've got is it'd be nice to see them achieve that. As a rugby league fan, I'm not sure that's what the game would need. I think they're going to win some more games. I think the pattern is they'll win a game and they'll lose a good handful and then they'll pick up another one. I think it's down to Hull KR now. It's down to Hull KR. I think Leeds will just keep them away at arm's length. But I think there's a lot of pressure on Hull KR. And like Alex said, they're having some fun at London, aren't they? They'll ride this one for a couple of weeks. They might not get a result for a little while, but then they will, and then it starts bringing those teams back in. And I think
hold that thought. We're going to go on to KR in a minute. We've had a very quick first half. We'll come right back after the break. We'll get the inside scoop from Alex on his move to Leeds and talk about Tony Smith and Tim Sheens at Hull KR. You've spoken and we've listened. Rugby League Backchat is available on podcast form from all your best podcast providers. If you're on a trip down the M62 or a flight to Toronto or Toulouse, download Rugby League Backchat for the best debate inside Rugby League. Welcome back to the second part of this week's Rugby League Backchat. We're going to go straight to Alex because you are on the move. You're going to Leeds Rhinos next year. That came out last week. 3-year deal. First and foremost, how pleased are you that you're joining a club like the Rhinos?
Yeah, mate, it's really exciting for me. You know, it's a club that's always been huge and always been really successful. So I think when the opportunity came up, it really excited me and took me by the kahunas, you know. And I just thought, wow, something that I can't pass up on, and I'm gonna take it.
It was well talked about your future in the public domain. Obviously, there was a contract offer from Huddersfield, and then that wasn't there. So, from your perspective, it must have been a little bit of a stressful time because you go into the open market and you no idea what's going on, do you?
Yeah, it was really stressful, mate. For about 6 weeks, I think if you ask my missus, she'll tell you how stressed I was. And it's one of them things where you back yourself, and you think you're doing the right thing, but all along. There's that voice in the back of your head saying, have you done the right thing? Is anyone going to even come in for you? Are you going to be out of a job? What am I going to do next year? But I think to get the just reward for it was definitely worth all the stress.
I think it won't be unfair to say there were a few clubs in for you. Why Leeds? What made Leeds the club?
I think Leeds sort of delayed it a little bit as well. I didn't really know that they were going to make an offer until a couple of weeks after May the 1st. And to be fair, when Kev spoke to me about it, he came and met me, and he came across as such a genuine bloke. Told me about how much the club sort of wanted me and how much of a big part of the club I'd be. And then when I went for a meeting there, took me around the stadium, and I was just wowed straight away by the ground and the facilities, and obviously it's quite close for me, and everything sort of fit in. Every other club, there was sort of a little bit of a hiccup, and there'd have to be this and there'd have to be that, and some would have to move and things like that. So Leeds just sort of fit the mould for me and suited me best at this time in my career.
You mentioned that it took a couple of weeks for him to put the offer in. Did they nearly miss out on you then? Did you very nearly, jump and go somewhere else, or even stay at Huddersfield?
I think I was waiting. I think one club sort of texted my agent and said, "Is it too late, or have we still got a chance?" And he said, "You've just got a chance, But Leeds was sort of the club that I was waiting for. So I was always sort of willing to wait out a little bit. I was waiting on a few things. I think Saints sort of flirted with me a little bit, and I was sort of waiting on Leeds and Saints, and then Leeds came through with an offer, and it was something that I couldn't really say no to. So I was quite happy to sign it.
Is it a bit of a gamble in a way going to a club that haven't got a head coach appointed for next year?
Yeah, I think it is a gamble. I think we sat down, and when I've had a chat with my parents and my missus about this, was I willing to risk? Was I willing to take a risk and take a gamble, and maybe end up somewhere that I didn't want to be, waiting out for Leeds, or do I take the safe option? And I think I came to the conclusion that I am willing to take a risk. I'm at that stage in my career where I do want to take that risk and try win something and be somewhere that I really want to be. So we dived at the opportunity and luckily it came off how we wanted it to.
And Leeds' form over the last few years wasn't a concern either, because obviously they won the title 2 years ago, but generally the last, I think, 4 have been fairly disappointing.
I think it's obviously a concern, but I think speaking to Kev when I did, and the things that he's putting in place and the way that the club's looking like it's going, and you combine that with its history, I think it's a really exciting place to be. And he sold it really well, and I'm confident in Kev, and I'm confident in the club that it can be back where it belongs.
Guess you'll be looking at London even more now, hoping that they don't overtake Leeds.
Yeah, slightly. I've always obviously got my eye on that. I'm a Huddersfield player this year, and that's got to stay like that, and I'm focused on that. But yeah, in the back of my mind, it's there, and I'm kind of hoping that things go wrong for some teams and right for one other. But yeah,
I would think for Alex, I don't think it's too much of a gamble. If you look at the bigger picture of who can win things in our sport, who wins, well, you're an handful of clubs. There's no one jumping out of the pack at the moment. It's still that handful of clubs who are there. And obviously Leeds, probably Wigan aren't in there. They're down to 3 this year, probably. So I think most clubs aren't geared up to be successful for a long time. There might be a flash in a pan here or there, but most clubs aren't set up. Whereas, I had a look at around the facilities, and they're they're a different level from anything in the sport now, and even other sports. You go to nice big stadiums, you go and look at that with the cricket. It's just a different level. You just think that club is going to generate wealth. It's going to be in position to provide facilities and all what's needed for a championship winning side.
Not the championship.
Well, no. Or if it is, then I think the game would have to change. They'd have to change the rules if Leeds went down. They'd have to do.
Oh, they couldn't, could they?
They
couldn't.
Yeah,
So let's. Well, Alex is saying, but imagine if you've got Toronto in there. There'd be no away fans for the rest of the year. We've got another handful of clubs who don't provide anything.
Franny, you can't tell me that if Leeds went down, or a Wigan or anyone like that, they would change the rules.
I think that as we are right now, we're not in a great position as a sport. If you're going to lose an iconic brand with people and what are generating wealth, I don't know how the game is going to carry on properly, because there's an handful that generate and there's others are not really doing anything. I honestly think as a game we need to look at something. I don't think promotion relegation helps the sport anyway, but if you're going to lose one of your tier 1 clubs, I dread to think what Super League could look like if I know it's great what London have done, but imagine London, some of the other clubs that haven't got any supporters. Ooh.
Yeah, I think that
it's scary.
I don't know if they would change the rules, but Super League would be much poorer without Leeds or Wigan. I mean, look, Leeds are the best supported club.
Yeah.
They've got what I think's the best stadium. And as Franny says, it's
Different
just
level.
absolutely sensational. The ground, they get 10, 12,000 people every week. They're the most successful club over the Super League era. They've got one of the best youth setups. The academy are doing really well under Rob Burrow this year, and there's some very talented players. I mean, Alex will probably know there's some really good young kids waiting to come through. And how often are Leeds on the telly? You're going to have to renegotiate a TV deal at some stage, and without Leeds, it's not going to be worth as much.
You didn't say
as it is
OKR. Without
with them.
OKR, they bring away supporters. I know that's not
Yeah.
doesn't pay everything now, but still, as a sport, we've got to think about these things.
I'd be against it purely for the fact I don't want to have to cover another league restructure. That was painful last year. But there has been, I don't quite know where this has come from. But there's talk that Toronto might even turn down going into Super League. I mean, surely they wouldn't.
I've sort of heard rumours, but I can't see why they would turn that down. The whole aim from them seems to have been from the day they started to get into Super League. Why would
they
they
won't
turn
turn
it
that down, I
down?
don't think.
And the Super League players won't want it turning down because it's a trip to Canada, isn't it?
Yeah, it's a bit of a holiday. You don't get many of them in the season doing rugby league.
We're on holiday for Widnes.
Of course you went. Yeah, that was a tough day.
And
wasn't
look,
it?
I've been involved in. I remember going to play in Perpignan with Leeds against London Exhibition, and then we played Catalan. Brilliant. Just the feel of it. Going to Toronto, exactly the same. People there who are just getting into this sport, and the positives from it is brilliant. It's good. We didn't have all the paper plate stuff as well, so I know the championship clubs, have had a raw deal and people not being able to get there. But when we went there as a Super League club, it was fantastic. And it's good for the sport. It is. But there's another bit in there. There's the finances bit at the other side as well, which is all going to stack up.
We're going to get into Toronto later on. I want to bring up Hull KR. You mentioned Tony Smith earlier on. He has a new job. And we also talked about how Leeds have to keep it in-house and be quiet and do business in-house. It was the exact opposite of Hull KRP. It came out that Tim Sheens was going on the Monday. He went on the Thursday. Tony Smith's now in. What's your take on this whole quite bizarre situation?
Bizarre's exactly the right word, isn't it? It was, if from what we can tell, everyone on I think it was the Monday basically knew that Tim Sheens was going, but he came in and he kept taking training for a couple of days afterwards. That must have been a really strange situation for him and for the players. Yeah. I don't think it reflected well on Hull KR as a club. Hull KR are a club that I've got a bit of time for. I don't think it reflected well on them. Having said that, I think Tony Smith's an excellent appointment. He caught everyone by surprise. I didn't hear anyone mentioning his name, but having obviously known Tony for quite a while, he will improve them. I think you have to remember that he's going to have to work with the tools that Tim Sheens had, and there isn't going to be a miracle cure, but I think there will be a better team for having Tony Smith there, and the sport's better for having him back in the code. It's great that he said he's got his love for rugby league back, and I think that's fantastic because he's an outstanding coach. I mean, obviously, Franny worked closely with him 2004.
Onwards, yeah. Well,
certainly turned Leeds around. He turned Leeds from a promising team.
He did, yeah. He
into
took the next step.
A winning team, yeah.
And I think I spoke with Tony quite a lot because he's been out of job. So we've almost had like an unemployed coaches, and Willie Poaching was in that for a long time. He's got a part-time job now, so he can only join in a few of the conversations. But at times you're supporting each other. You see now, come on, Smithy, and you can see how initially when it was raw that he did think that was it. He was going to go and mentor football managers. I think he's been doing that for the last 18 months. But of recent, he's got interested again, and I think he got an opportunity, and it happened pretty quick. We're probably chatting on the Monday, thinking, "Have you heard about Tim Sheens?" And he's saying, "No, I've not heard anything," because it wasn't confirmed, was it? And then the next phone call is, "I've got a job."
On Tim Sheens though, Alex, I mean, he went there when they got relegated. He got them up, which is what he has to do, and then has to keep them up, and he kept them up. and then he's lost his job. Has he been a bit harshly treated, do you think?
Maybe, yeah. I think, like you said, he's done a very good job. He's done exactly what the club needed him to do over the last couple of years. And and to be fair to OKR, they play a really good brand of rugby. You know, they every time they come and play us, they seem to score loads of points. And the only thing that lets them down really is the D. So whether the chairman's got a little bit sick of that and sick of the high flare games and conceding lots of points and wants a little bit more security in a coach that's going to, you know, be really big on the small things and the defensive side of it, which is what Tony Smith is. And it's going to be a strange transition for him with it happening so quick. But I think as a player, you just sort of deal with what's in front of you, whether it happens slow, whether it happens quick, whether you turn up one day and you've got a different coach, you're still playing the same game. So the players know what they need to do there. Tim Sheens, has been unlucky, but I don't think it'll affect the playing group that much.
Franny, I mean, the word is on Tim Sheens that he found out he was sacked through the media. Have you ever known anything like that during your playing or coaching career?
No, not really. I think there might be. Look, as a coach, you know, and I know especially where I've been, you know, well, look, you lose this game, this might be it. Yeah. But I think if I wouldn't have thought Tim Sheens were on social media, but if the media told him, then that doesn't reflect well on OKR. I think we spoke about Leeds before of how it needs to be that if they're going to make a decision, they obviously thought that they're in danger of getting relegated, so they're now going to make a decision. But it didn't seem like they had Tony Smith in place, so they just made a decision, and that's for probably a level up. But if it is, that's poor. It's poor, and a lot of things with coaching, it's not logic at times. It's a whim or it's an opinion. It's, you know, no one can see in the future. You can put things in place and you've got to do it. But, you know, even by making a decision as a club chairman, they don't know. There's no written path. It's not do this, you get that. They've thought they have to make a change, but. It obviously benefit Tony Smith, but Tim Sheens is thinking, well, if you highlight it the way you did, you think, well, he's had a tough or raw deal there.
How often do players find stuff out through the media? Is it frequent? Is it the perils of a modern day rugby league player?
I think a lot of rumours and stuff come out a long time before the players know. But I think if it gets to the stage where a player's finding something out on social media or through the media, then the club's never done its job well enough. Yeah. You know, it's no good for a player's sort of welfare, and a coach, like you say with Tim Sheens, that's no good for him. It's unprofessional, really, and I hope it hasn't come to that, and I hope they've obviously spoke to him before he's found out on social media or whatever. But yeah, it's poor if they have.
Okay, well, coming up after the break, we'll be talking to Franny about his coaching career, and after a difficult week for the Toronto Wolfpack, we'll get stuck into their troubles. We'll be right back. Welcome back for the final part of this week's Rugby League Back Chat. We're going to go straight over to you, Mr. Cummins. You've been out of the game for a little while after leaving Widnes. What can you tell us about what you've done in the time since?
Well, I've always coached. Even, you know, with kids rugby. I've got a rugby school as well, so pass on that sort of thing. I've got a business with a couple of pals who they're in charge. I just mess it up when I get in there and just try and help. But yeah, I'm like every other coach. I've coached for 20 years, so it's not like you know, I'd stop playing. And I've got a passion for coaching. I want to coach. I just need an opportunity, and that's really where I am at the moment.
Tell me if I'm wrong, but did you pick two of the hardest jobs you could have ever picked? First, Bradford in the financial position they were in, and then Widnes, they were also having their own financial issues, and the squad and the position. Are you a bit of a sucker for punishment?
Well, I think pick might be the wrong term. But I would say and advise any young budding coaches, don't coach a team that's going in admin or coming out of admin. It's very, very difficult, especially when you're losing players and all that. Having said that, you learn lots of things. You probably learn a lot more, probably learn a lot more being in those situations than I did tweaking bits at Leeds where ideally, well, we had probably world-class players and they were the best team in the world. There was finding things for them to do, practicing core skills, but also looking for the next thing where you have to backtrack a bit on other things. It's about creating cultures and all that. But, I've run into a few dodgy people as well, and situations, but you've got to take out the best of it. And I think, when they sacked Dennis at Widnes, with decision, do I have a crack at it or do I say no? And I thought to myself, if I say no, that means that I'm finished as a coach. As I'm a competitor. I'm not able to play like Alex does. Well, I couldn't play like Alex anyway, but you're always a competitor. I want to do better, and it's very difficult. It's difficult when you've not got a roster, but you just try and make improvements, and sometimes that improvements can be a lot, and sometimes it can only be a little bit. And while it's not easy, it's enjoyable in a strange sort of way. I enjoyed most of every day I did.
Look, what happened at Widnes, what happened after you left was awful. I'm guessing that had sort of festered before while you were there. How challenging was that period? Because obviously you try to get results.
Yeah. There's a couple of things. There's two bits to Widnes as I saw it. There's a real passionate backbone of the club, and that's volunteers working for the club as well as being paid, and the fans. But it was disjointed as a club. There was a lot of infighting, not so much in the club. I mean, the supporters resented the chairman and the CEO, and there was all this, and I'm not watching because of that. And generally, they just didn't have enough money. They wanted to see better rugby. In the other hand, they were producing players. The academy was relatively successful, but those players weren't ready. And it was great. And I give debuts as well, and it's great to see that they're still playing now. But for the last 3 or 4 years, they'd either been selling the best players because either players wanted to go or they couldn't hold on to them, and that's the thing about Super League. It's that where it starts getting taken away, and you're left with players, who are trying the best mostly, but are not quite good enough. And it's you're trying to plug those little holes and try and concentrate on the core things about not giving much away. And we just couldn't do it, and it was difficult at Widnes because it was like the club was tearing itself apart.
Were you surprised when it ended as it did with them going into administration and stuff?
No, because I saw little signs. What I saw when I was at Bradford, I didn't realise they were there at Bradford until you go through it, and we went through it a couple of times. But as I was, as a coach, you don't know the full picture. I want more players, I want more staff, I want to do things better. And when things aren't getting provided, and when other things start getting taken away, thinking, I've been here before, I can see what's happening here. So I was probably more surprised that they kept some players on who they'd agreed to pay the year before, when maybe they could have moved them on and it could have helped the situation. But we knew that the club weren't in a good position. It weren't a good position.
So despite the challenges, let's say, you've faced at Bradford and Widnes, it's not sort of tempered your appetite to get back into it?
No. I mean, you've got to look at, and it doesn't always work out. I mean, Tim Sheens is, look at that, it didn't work out there. Different levels, I know, but you look at the things that you have done as well, and it's casting back to Leeds. But even early at Bradford, we finished ninth that first year. We were half to spend, and then we went in admin. So there's more about the challenge. I get an opportunity, I think, is is that I'll back myself. I've had a couple of rough experiences, but it makes you stronger for that. And by going through that, it's like a player. You have a bad couple of games and you get over it, you start playing well again, you get back in. So I'm pretty confident in that. I just, I'm not on social media, so I'm not talking about myself every 2 minutes. But if anything came up, I'd be willing to get back in.
Franny, do you think there are enough opportunities given to young British coaches? Because there are some good young English coaches doing good things as assistants or in the Championship, but they don't seem to come through and get a head coach's gig. When was the last time someone came through from the Championship to coach in Super League? Danny Ward did it the hard way, didn't he? Got his team promoted, but I can't think of too many that have been appointed.
He should be the best man for the job. There's been a few where you just think, where's that come from? Where there's people, and we've got to think of where we want to go as a game again. It's that bit where, what are we producing? Do we need foreign coaches in League One? Do we need them in Championship? Again, that's not for me to decide. There's some good coaches out there, but we've only got an handful of jobs, and there's a point of where, I've got a family, and I talk about pressures, about uncertainty. I talk about when you haven't got a job, Alex, that's the uncertainty of it. And people will then, like I will, you'll go and do something else. You've got to earn some money, and you're almost lost to the game because, I've got all this experience, but I've got nowhere to peddle it. There's coaches going into rugby union because that's a bigger industry. You can earn a living at different levels and do part of the job. I've got a passion for coaching. It's just, and there's lots of us, even to the point of people and coaches over here with coaching badges and have paid money to get to a level, and they can't get anywhere near. And it's like, what are we doing? We've got a level 3 and level 4, but there's no joined up. We're allowing things to happen within the game, but you're trying to get a coaching certificate going here, and then people can get jobs without those. So it's got to be the best man for the job. It's got to be that. And I'm not bothered where they're from, but there's got to be something about, well, if you're building this coaching, group up, then they should get an opportunity or be in there. And I think the chairman needs to be educated on that as well.
Well, Franny, I'm sure that we all wish you the best of luck in your coaching endeavours. We'll move on to Toronto. Not the best week for Toronto, I think it's fair to say, Pete. The player wasn't allowed back in the country. Then the whole alleged racism by David Argyle, which has seen him step down from the club. Where to start? It's just not been a good week for them, has it?
What he said wasn't acceptable. I've got no sympathy for him, to be honest. And whatever effect it has on the club, you've got to feel a little bit sorry for Toronto as a club. But he's done the right thing by stepping down. That's taken some of the pressure off the RFL, I think, who are I understand are investigating, but obviously he's not the owner or chairman anymore. So some of what they have to do has been mitigated a bit. But what he said wasn't acceptable. I think Jose Kenga was absolutely right to bring it out in the way he did on social media. And I think the outcry that followed was exactly right as well. I can't imagine why he said what he did, but this isn't the 1950s. It's not acceptable. You can't do that. And you certainly can't do it if you're a club owner. I know he's got a reputation for really looking after, and Franny's been there, I haven't been, but they've got a reputation for looking after visiting fans and players, and he's just lost his marbles at that stage, and I don't see how he could have stayed on.
Alex, it's just the sort of thing you don't expect. I mean, we're of a younger generation, and people say, society's changed, and people can be a bit more precious, maybe a bit more pedantic, but you just can't say that, can you?
No, I think in this day and age, mate, especially with the likes of social media and things, and once one thing's said, it's out there to everyone, and he's obviously made a mistake. I think the thing for me is he's not realised the effects that it's going to have on Toronto as a club. So he said it, made a mistake. He can sack himself and say sorry and stuff, but then where does that leave Toronto? If he sort of pulls out and Toronto sort of rely on him, where does it leave him? So it is a mistake, but like I said, it's quite unforgiving in this day and age to make such a big mistake.
I don't want to say it's commendable what he's done, Franny. That's the wrong word, I think. I think, have you met him as well? Did you meet him?
Yeah.
I've met him. I wouldn't have had a bad word to say about him before this. It shocked me. But then again, that doesn't excuse it.
No, he's made a massive mistake, and I think when I met him and he looked after the players, he seemed to be he seemed like just a mad fan of the game and enjoyed being around the players. And when I heard it, obviously you think, why would you say something like that? Obviously, I don't know him to that depth, and I'm thinking, I got the impression he was a mad fan, and you'll know this, Alex. Sometimes fans say things. They just say, why are you training? Shouldn't you be training? And it's like 9 o'clock at night.
Yeah.
And they just take to break the... I can't defend what he said because it's just shocking, isn't it?
The other thing as well,
Where does it come from?
I've got friends of different race, of different cultural backgrounds, and I've spoken to them about this, and they said to me, if someone who you know very well said it to you, maybe they still wouldn't be comfortable with it. For a complete stranger to say something to you, it makes it even worse, doesn't it? I wouldn't have been comfortable saying that to my best friend who is of a different race, yet alone someone I've never met before.
Yeah, I think that's the thing. And if it's in your sort of circle of friends, there's sort of things said that won't get repeated and shouting out. But if a complete stranger, like you say, comes up to you, you've got to have better manners than that and treat people better than that.
Where did Toronto go from here, Pete? I don't know the ins and outs. I think Argyle will still be putting the money in from what I can gather, but there's going to be some challenges and the RFL investigation as well may stop him from doing that. We don't know at this stage of the game, do we?
It is a concern, yeah. I mean, from what the club's statement said, he said he'd meet his obligations, which is obviously from their point of view a good thing, but it's certainly not what they needed at this stage. I mean, without his financial backing, I don't know what sort of state the club would be in. It's just a worrying time for the club and everybody associated with them. I hope it's not going to derail Toronto as an organisation. But if it does, it's down to one individual. I mean, I don't know him, but from what people have said, it's not sort of. He's not a malicious character.
Not at all.
Or anything.
Not at all.
And I mean, I don't think he's racist. Well, I don't know him, but I very much doubt he's racist. But he said something silly, and I think it's been compounded by the fact if the player involved obviously was shocked at the time, and by his account, it was just laughed off. And I think, you know, if he'd said, "Oh God, I'm really sorry. I was just having a bit of banter. I'm sorry. I didn't mean anything by it." Maybe it wouldn't have been acceptable, but it could have been put to one side. But it sounds like that wasn't the case, and nothing's happened until Jose's decided to go public with it, and I think that's compounded the issue.
Yeah, it's at very best, it's a very, very misjudged joke, isn't it? At very, very best.
I mean, maybe it was that, but yeah, it's some things are unacceptable, aren't they? And that's one of them.
I think it could have been dealt with as well. I think it left Jose in a position where he's probably thought nothing's really been done about this. Yeah, exactly. I'm gonna have to take it public and make it into a huge deal. He could have probably dealt with it better and spoke to Jose himself and addressed it rather than trying to brush it under the carpet and let it all go.
Done the right thing.
He's done the right thing. Yeah, he's felt forced to do that, hasn't
he? And too many times on lots of different things, but people turn the other cheek, and I think that sort of thing, it's right in it. The game doesn't stand for that sort of stuff.
Why should he be putting that?
And it's
that
right.
Position though?
It's right. What's happened?
Why have the RFL not acted before? Why did the RFL have to act off the back of him?
I think that's a very good point, and I'd like to know what the RFL's response to that is, because I think Jose's saying that he made them aware of it some time ago, and as far as we know, nothing's come of it. I mean, this didn't happen just the other week, did it? Was it in April?
4 weeks ago, I think, 5.
So you would think that would be enough time to investigate and to make a decision.
I think it's fair to say, Pete, we're all in support of Jose Kenga here. You get involved in the conversation too. Get in touch on Twitter @RL Backchat. That's all we've got time for this week. A big thanks to my guests, Francis Cummins, Pete Smith and Alex Mellor. We'll be back for another edition of Rugby League Backchat next week. But for now, bye-bye.